It has to be the offensive line. That's where it starts for me, because had it not been for the Seattle Seahawks, the Giants would have had the worst offensive line in the NFL in 2017. So they put a lot of money, a lot of draft capital into retooling that offensive line, signed Nate Solder, at the time made him the highest paid tackle in the NFL. They drafted Will Hernandez with the high second-round pick. So the idea is they're going to try to get this thing back on track with an explosive offense. The offensive line just has to be average. It has to be serviceable. If it's not, it's going to be a struggle for the Giants. They got great skill position players. I mean, you can stack it up man for man. They're one of the best groups at the skill position players in the NFL. But it all starts there on that offensive line. It all starts with the offensive line, because if you can't block anybody, then the quarterback can't get the ball to those receivers. The running game is going to be a struggle.
Well, let's sorry, go ahead.
And if they can't block anybody, then Eli's got no shot. Like, that was what, as critical as I've been about Eli, that's what was not his fault last year, was how many times, by the time he could look to his first option, if that guy wasn't open, when he's trying to look to his second, he's having to fall down because a sack is coming.
He led the NFL in pass attempts with less than 2.5 seconds from the pocket.
It's the exact point. It is the perfect statistical note to the point I'm making. Like, you watched it and you saw Eli was constantly under duress. So I looked into 2 years ago, when the offensive line was a little bit better, when Odell was healthy, when the Giants that was a team whose strength was their defense, but Eli played well enough to get them double-digit wins, get them to the playoffs. And I said, how were they winning these games? Eli was excellent in the first half of games and then good enough while the defense suffocated you in the second half of games. Also, in their wins, Eli played clean football games. In their losses is when he had a disproportionate number of his total interceptions for the season. I think it was 16 2 years ago, were in those 6 losses that they had. So, like, that's the path for them, is that they jump out to an early lead. Eli plays a clean football game, because this is the most, in my eyes, offensive talent Eli Manning's ever had. It's the most offensive talent of a Giants team, potentially, in my memory. Because, as you say, when they've won, it's because they've had great running game and great defense. They got better wide receivers on this team and pass catchers than I remember.
They have a good tight end who has some potential in Evan Ingram, okay? They have a superstar in Odell Beckham. I don't want to get into this as the best group, because the other guys, I mean, what have they proven?
Can I use Saquon Barkley as the pass catcher, though? Like, it's part of the math there?
Yeah, but that's unproven, though.
Okay, sure.
I mean, I don't see we're going to transfer his highlights from Penn State. Like, Odell Beckham is the only dependable receiver that they have. And from a dependability standpoint, I would go with Evan Ingram. He stepped up last year, even more so than Sterling Shepard. People talk about Sterling Shepard as if he has all these 1,000-yard seasons now. I still need to see some things, all right? Because I'm going to tell you, like Barkley, all right? Sterling Shepard, where'd he go to school? Oklahoma. How many receivers from Oklahoma have done well in the NFL?
Not a whole.
Wait on it.
It won't be, okay.
Wait on it.
So these things, they do matter to me. Where he went to school, how does that transfer over? Because what says that he's going to be the guy that turn around the reputation of Oklahoma receivers? I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I'm just saying that he should do it on the field before we give him credit for it. Last year, Evan Ingram, I thought, was spectacular with no type of help. Bad offensive line, which all those stats and stuff are reported. He had some amazing plays. He was able to stay focused when they were totally out of contention.
By the midway point of the season, he was their #1 receiving option. Odell's out. Brandon Marshall's out. He was their #1 receiving threat as a second-year tight end.
And besides their right tackle, which Eric Flowers, like, we can't not have a Giants discussion without talking about him. So for me, these other supporting players become prominent. How good is Cody Latimer? He might end up starting outside. Now, he was a disappointment in Denver. Now, you guys are saying this is the best wide receiving core. We don't know what we're going to get out of him. He needs to have a good season on the outside. So Shepard, which I believe he is primarily a slot receiver, so he can stay in the slot. And I believe another one, the big question mark, is my dude from Ohio State. Not Eli Manning, Eli Apple at cornerback. If all of these guys are able to put together some seasons, then the Giants are going to have a chance. So we're talking about, oh, man, what about the offense? Oh, I'm not worried. Man, they got huge question marks at positions where they have spent high draft capital on potential, and we need to see that potential played out on the field, Chris.
Well, CC, let's start with the one that's not a question mark, and you said it off the top, Odell Beckham Jr., proven commodity. To me, he's the one that sets the table for the entire offense just because he really dictates front and coverage. So you can't drop that 8th man down in the box to slow down the running game just because you got to make sure you got a safety over top of Odell Beckham Jr. So
yes.
with that being said, you should have one-on-one opportunities for the other pass catchers in that offense. Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, even Saquon Barkley to a degree.
This is what they're going to see. They're going to see a 7-man box. They're not going to let Barkley beat them, and they know their offensive line is not good. So they're going to put a number count to make the Giants make a decision. Either Eli Manning going to throw the ball to Ingram or one of those other receivers, because 7 plus 2 on Beckham, it's one-on-one coverage on the rest of the field. It should be that simple for the Giants this season.
It should be, and that's why I say it comes down to the offensive line being able to provide time for Eli Manning to work the football to those other guys. Because Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard, there are not a lot of pass concepts where they're going to be the number one option. So it's going to take Eli a little bit of time, more than he had last year. The running game, Saquon Barkley, they're going to be inside, outside zone. It's not going to be one of those old school lead weak power road type of gap blocking schemes. They're going to use the zone running game because Saquon Barkley is going to have to be his own blocker in a lot of situations. And you saw that in the first run that he had against the Cleveland Browns in the preseason game. So we all have to go back to the offensive line. And really, the preseason is going to be an important time for this group because they marched out 4 new starters from the group a year ago. So they need that time to gel, to develop that chemistry. So much of what the Giants' success is going to be on the offensive line because the offense has to set the table. You saw the issues with the defense in the preseason game against the Browns. No pass rush to speak of. Coverage was suspect. So it's got to be with the offense winning the day for the Giants, and it starts up front.
But wait, how do you feel about the offensive line? Quick question. Of the 3 marquee names that we're all going to talk about throughout the season, of Saquon and Eli and Odell, which one of their personal success is going to correlate more to team success? Who has to have the bigger of the 3 breakout big years in order for this team to be successful?
Oh, to me, there's no question. Eli's got to have a good year.
Yes.
Like, I mean, to me, there's no doubt about it.
If Eli's cup run up over, it's going right into Odell and Barkley. And like,
yes.
And if Eli has a good year, if Eli's even in contention for the Pro Bowl, the Giants will be in contention for the biggest year-over-year win improvement.
Yes.
Last year, the biggest improvement was the Jags went from 3 wins to 10 wins. If Eli has a good season, the Giants absolutely could be in that same bucket. Go from 3 wins to 10 wins. Like, that's a thing that could happen, but I think Eli can play poorly and Odell can still have 1,400 yards. I think Eli can play poorly and Saquon can still rush for 1,200. But it's everything else. It's how much does Evan Ingram improve in year 2? It's Sterling Shepard. They spent a second-round pick on him. And you're right that I am maybe more attracted to the flashes of momentary brilliance I've seen from him than actual sustained success. They obviously thought they needed more help last year. It's one of the reasons they brought in Brandon Marshall and tried to put Sterling in the slot. But, like, if Eli plays well, that also means the offensive line was better than it was last year. Like, he is going to be the barometer for this football team. No question about it in my eyes.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.